run for 2 days on one fuel up on 100 gallons. Not hard days. If I run hard days, it's gonna take about a tank and a quarter. But no, I'll tell you what though. Yeah, about a tank and a quarter on hard days of picking corn, 200 bushels plus corn. Because I just did it. And what I use to fuel my combine is a 100-gallon tank right there on the back of the truck. Now this is directly plumbed right to the battery on the truck. I leave the truck running because that little Fill-Rite 15-gallon a minute pump will completely drain the battery and I won't be able to start the truck. So it's one of those things you just got to deal with. Now, about a year ago, I was down in North Carolina, or I was in Virginia, and I was baling corn fodder. And to run this tank to fuel 5 tractors is insanely slow, and it's a full-time job for someone to do that. And Teresa did a wonderful job, as did Joe or myself. You know, we really worked pretty hard to keep all 5 tractors fueled up. We'd have to run to every gas station or fuel depot that we could find to fill it up and run the equipment. So that was a little antiquated. So what I did was I actually reached out to Zach, the millennial farmer. You know, the millennial farmer. Everybody knows the millennial farmer. And I like Zach. I'm not disrespecting him in any way, but I will say he had a fuel trailer that was second to none, the most awesome thing I've ever seen. I mean, it was great. So I reached out to him through Instagram, I think, or maybe it was Instagram, and we talked back and forth a little bit, and he said it's great, it's awesome. He says, but it's expensive. And I thought, well, expensive to me for a fuel rig like that I could take to North Carolina, that I could take to Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware, and New Jersey, and now New York. $7,000 to $8,000, right? $7,000 or $8,000. So he says, oh no, that'd be cheap. He said this was 20. I think he said that it was over 20,000. I know he said it was over $20,000 for the fuel trailer. Well, $20,000, you can burn a lot of gasoline going back and forth from a gas station or a fuel depot to fuel up equipment. So I opted to just stick with this 100-gallon tank. Now I was going to buy a 250-gallon tank to put on the back of the truck. I just couldn't find one that was reasonably priced. I mean, they get really, really expensive because at that size, then they're double wall tanks, and again, you're spending thousands of dollars. So that's why I decided to stick with this. But those fuel trailers are tits. I mean, they're great. The problem is they're very, very expensive. And to me, I should do it, but I'm not going to. I just don't have that kind of extra cash flow. Well, I guess I could do it. I just don't feel that it is the highest priority that I have. So until I decide to build one or buy one used, or just go buy a, you know, I could buy a used fuel truck, one that they used to use to fill your house and your fuel pumps, like, or fuel tanks like I got. I'll just stick with that. A used fuel truck in decent shape, something like 8 to 10 years old, I can probably get for $10,000 bucks, and that would be okay. 10,000 versus, and it's a truck that I can go down to the Duck Island and pick up 2,500 gallons in, and just use that to fill everything up. But until then, I'm using this. I would also like to add to the comments about that fuel thing with the equipment that I run. This is a 29-year-old combine. Of course, we didn't use it for 6 years, and or 5 years. Didn't use it for 5 years. But the majority of farmers in this country do not have brand new shiny equipment, and they don't have that option to really purchase it on, you know, small farms. I'd say a small farm is anywhere under 1,000 or under is considered a small farm. 1,000 acres and under. I just can't afford that stuff. And like these wagons that I just purchased, there were comments it's about you know, just the cost of the wagons versus the cost of a brand new one, and it'll do the same job. I've only grown 150 acres of corn, give or take. 150 to 160 acres of corn. I'm not 100% sure what the acreage is. It's between 150 and 160. So, with that small of an amount of acreage, it doesn't pay me to go out and upgrade to new equipment. It just doesn't. Now, this coming year, I have ambitions of doing about 500 acres or more. I've already got the land procured. It all depends on the soil prep, and if I can get enough material to prep the soil to do what I want to do. You see, I put in you know, enough that I would make a nice profit at 175 bushel to the acre. Did I expect to go over 175? No. I needed 150, I think 153 to break even. That was my break even cost. But 175 would have been the profit cost. It would actually have made it a lot nicer for me to, you know, I had to make some money, you know. But so far, that field right up there topped out at 23% moisture. It's 23% moisture on average, 308 bushels. That was insane, if you ask me. What I'm into right now is very similar. The difference is there are some low spots out here. So where the corn is really, really good right now, where I'm picking, where the corn is really, really good, like right here, it's every bit of what I was getting over there, like 300 plus bushels the acre. At one point, you know, it was coming in probably over 400 bushels because there was a couple of low spots that take the yield right down, just like this field here. So this one here is going to be somewhere in the 200s. Obviously, it'll be in the 200s because of these couple of low spots out towards the other end of the field. The difference in this field versus the one to my right is quite distinct. There's no substrate. I didn't put any substrate on this soil. Nothing. Zero, zippo, zilch. This is the only field. Well, this isn't the only field that didn't have substrate. There were two fields that didn't have substrate. The difference between the other field and this field is I doubled up the amount of commercial fertilizer that I put on that field. And instead of, because I had a little left over, I figured, well, I'm going to do this one here as though it was prescribed by the fertilizer company to put it on. And I will end up with over 200 bushels to the acre, and I'm quite pleased with that. The problem that I'm having right now, and you can see, is that it is very damp outside. We have a terrible haze, no sunshine, and there's some green left in these stalks. Now, this combine would shuck that right down if it was dry stalks. You know, it just would. It would work. It would feed better. I'd be going 4 mile an hour, 4.5 mile an hour versus my 2.2 that I'm at right now, just to try and get it to feed in. Which I'm doing a better job at this speed. It's I'm able to dive down and get some of those stalks that have fallen over or whatnot. But yeah, so this field here is just what the fertilizer company had recommended due to my soil tests that I had done. The organic matter in this field is ridiculously low. Actually, on this entire farm, it's ridiculously low because the former farmer was nothing more than a land miner. He mined anything that my grandfather and my uncle had put in here, to the point with soybeans and wheat, baled the wheat straw off, took the soybeans off, never added anything organic. Now, there's gonna be people say, well, you're just gonna make the fodder off of there and take all that organic matter. Well, I'm not going to take all the organic matter. There is a root mass underneath there, and now I have to stop and back this thing up. There's a root mass that will be left in the soil, and I am going to put substrate on this entire farm. So when you have substrate added, that's your organic matter that I took off. I'm going to add more than I took off, and that's just a fact. This entire farm will be corn again next year. The difference is it's going to have substrate throughout the whole entire thing, because that is what makes money when you get cheap fertilizer. If you get cheap fertilizer and get your input costs down, then you can make a nice profit. Now, I watch and listen to some other farmers and other farm advisors and things like that, and there was one thing that stuck out in my mind, and that is, just because you're doing more land does not mean you're making more money. And I agree with that 100%. If you have, see, I'm farming over 3,000 acres of ground, okay? Most of it's hay, and it's really, really difficult to manage that hay ground to the point where I'm getting the most off of that hay ground. As a matter of fact, I'm a little bit lax right now on my fertilizer program on the hay ground, where I should be more aggressive with potassium or potash, because the price of hay is not where it needs to be. Now, the next go round, and here's where this low spot is. Even though it's got some wicked ears on here, it is not, I can't say that it's yielding terrible. It's just not yielding that 350 bushels, and it's, you know, it's just not going to do it there. But it's not bad. Now the next 6 rows over is going to be bad. You'll see that. So what they were saying was, you know, you're better off, and even the millennial farmer's father, Zach's dad, and I don't remember what his name is. I know his last name's Johnson. But anyways, Mr. Johnson even said that we could farm more acres, but we'd be farming land that isn't up to what we want. We'll let other farmers farm that marginal soil, which is a smart move. Now, I live on marginal soil. The reason I'm growing corn here is because this is not marginal soil. This is exceptional soil for our area. And my grandfather made a nice living here, and my uncle did too. When my grandfather died, I think it hit my uncle pretty hard, because he farmed with his dad all his life, my grandfather. And it hits you hard when you lose that person that you farmed with, and it's a lot like, you know, we dealt with it too when my grandfather died. But my father still had my grandmother, who was really a good farmer in her own right. You hear that? Slip clutching backwards thing. It's going to take me a little bit to get this sucker to loosen up. And I think I'm going to get it. Yeah, its stalks are just so gummy, and they don't want to feed because they're wet. So anyway, yeah, where was I going with this? All right, so with this land that I'm on right now, and with the substrate that I'll put down, I will be able to produce and perform really well over the next 4 or 5 years. So this year is probably, if the weather's consistent, I should be able, I'm hearing something. Yeah, if the weather's consistent, I should be able to continue to increase my yields on this farm through fertilization and soil management, and be able to turn a profit every single year on this farm, especially if I get increased yields every year, which is not a guarantee. I mean, this is dryland corn, dry land. We do not have irrigation here. Not that I couldn't do irrigation. I'm sure that I could to an extent. And there's where the deer got into it, and just, that's either a deer or coons. Somebody told me bears will do exactly that, but they'll do a whole half an acre because they're freaking nuts. But I don't think that that's a bear bed. At least I don't think it is. It could be, but I don't think so. And I really wish the wind would blow a little more aggressively today and get these stalks dried down, because I would be able to really just zing right through it and you know, just do the job. So anyway, what I was talking about is my channel with the older equipment that I have really depicts the majority of farmers in this country and probably the world. The new equipment now is so damned expensive that the average farmer cannot afford a new combine, can barely afford a new tractor every 10 years. They're basically leasing programs is what a lot of guys will do, and you never own the machine anyway, and then it gets sold off to the majority farmer, you know, the majority guy that will buy something that's 8 to 10 years old or 6 to 10 years old and you know, farm with that successfully with higher profit margins because they didn't use the depreciation. Now there are a lot of farmers out there that will try to overtake the world and buy brand new equipment and try to out-farm everybody in the area to no avail, especially in this area, to no avail, because the equipment payments will take up any of the profit that you would make on your crop. Now this combine is paid for. All I have to do is maintain it and keep it going. It's been paid for 12 years, the 12 years that we've owned it. Paid cash for it, thank you very much. And it has done the job. The same thing with this header. I needed a 6-row header. I decided to go with the 996 because I could get it reasonably priced, and it will do the job. I am having a little issues now with green wet stalks, but for the most part, that little half a bushel to the acre that's shelling out into the out of the head because of this is not $150,000. You know, it won't equal that because I'm only doing 150 acres of corn. Yeah, next year I'll do a little bit more corn if the stalk deal or the fodder deal works out in my favor the way I'd like it to, which so far is looking like I'm going to do quite well there. And yeah, it will work out quite well. If it does, then I'm going to bump my acres to 500 acres. If it doesn't, I'll stay around 150 to 250 acres of corn and just live off of the profits from the enhanced soil program that I have. It will work. Plus, with the older equipment that I'm running, it will still net me a nice profit. So I'm having problems right now. I'm going to have to address the damp stalks. You can see them building up there. And just building up in the header. And I need to back it up. And of course it's going to bitch and moan about it. There's individual slip clutches there. And that'll clear it. And we'll be able to go again. I just wish the wind would blow and the sun would come out, because that would just dry these stalks down enough that it would just feed right in. No problems, but they're damp. Anyway, I guess you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly in this field, and you're probably tired of listening to me talk. And yeah, I'm here for the middleman, the guy that's in the middle of the majority of these guys. Not the middleman, but the majority of agriculture in this country. The majority of farmers. And I'm going to clear that thing's throat again, because I think it'll do a better job for the remainder of this set of rows. It's right there in that corner, and there's nothing I can do. The only thing I could do is stop and wait for sunshine, but I don't have that luxury because winter is approaching. They got snow in the forecast. And if you're out in the Midwest, you're already dealing with it. I know that Iowa got snow. I know that Minnesota got snow. I know there's other places that got snow. I don't want to be dealing with snow on very tall varieties of corn because it will go flat as a pancake, and I just don't want to see that. I don't want it. So, oh, that son of a bitchin' thing. I'm going to go get a hammer and start beating on that washer I welded in there, because I think that's what's causing this. Anyway, Thanks again.
Uh-oh. He's recording some.
Don't do that. Your turn, crazy boy.